Okay, peeps, welcome back. So today we're going to be going over LTCN BCHG HZEN ETCG and also Soundhound. Let's get it. So the first thing I want to point out to you guys here is that Soundhound is moving up. Okay, before we get into grayscale, we're going to cover this first. So Soundhound's moving up. Once again, the price target up here for the bull flag is $12 from the start of this move down here. In the aftermarket hours, you guys can see it is already moving up to $9. That is reflecting in our portfolio as well. So we're actually going to show you guys down here for those of you guys that bought Soundhound at the trade signal. Well, I'm not going to call it a trade signal, but the what we posted on X about Soundhound back at $5. Congratulations to you. You are massively in the profit. If you did not take that trade, that's entirely up to you. Whether you do or not is entirely up to you. You have to bear that responsibility. It's your trade. It's your money, all that stuff. It's not financial advice. But as you guys can see, we are up pretty huge. So we got in pretty heavy down there at $5 at that weekly support. And it is pushing up massively in the after hours. We are expecting this stock to continue going up all the way to potentially as high as $12. Which would be the price target. As you guys can see, it's just right below that red candle there. Potentially as high as, I'd say roughly about $14 before we hit any real resistance. And once again, we got this very short-lived bounce here, which we got in about $4.95, just right at that support zone, which again was major resistance for a long time. And then we just had this Herculean style kind of bounce here, just absolutely bonkers. So from that zone up just in the last couple of weeks, this thing has gone up nearly 80%. So anyways, let's go ahead and talk about the grayscale trusts. So just want to point out to you guys real quick also, since we're not covering Bitcoin for another few days, Bitcoin is trying to push all-time highs again. It's at 73,000, almost 500. So let's get into LTCN. So LTCN is still moving up, as you guys can see here. I actually got to get rid of this. That is a Fibonacci retracement. So we are in the current resistance zone. I have said before, once basically the target for this flag or ascending triangle down here was roughly around $27 a share. Whether you choose to sell out or not is entirely up to you. But do keep in mind, if we break above this resistance and hold it, turn it into support, you can see kind of the resistance areas back here. If we hold it as support, we're probably going to move all the way to, I would say, at least $77 a share. So that's a pretty large jump. But as you guys can see, there's not really a whole lot of resistance in between now and there. I mean, it could get stopped at 61, but I would say that's not likely because, again, you see this massive rejection wick here. That's a very, very large wick shooting star type candle. That's very bearish. That indicates serious resistance there. So I would say if we're going to get stopped anywhere, it's probably going to be at $77. $60 is a possibility, but that is still more than 2x the current price. I would say 77 is more realistic, and the next resistance zone is basically going to be around 100 to 134 bucks. I mean, you could buy LTCN now if you wanted to. There's no guarantee it's going to pull back, but if it did, it'd probably be somewhere in the zone. So roughly about pretty much where we got in. So about 1350 to 1519 at this point. Now, if we measure it from the zone to resistance, you'll see it's roughly about 67 to 92%. However, if you did get in around the support zone down here at the roughly $13 level and it goes all the way up here, you can see it's a much, much bigger profit. So it's about 632 to almost 900% profit. And we're not even talking about all-time highs then. So, or the previous highs. So you can see how just how massive the potential is here. So HZEN is another popular one we covered. We do not currently hold HZEN. We hold LTCN, LTCN BCHG and ETCG currently. But some of you might hold this one, so we'll cover it. There's a lot of wick rejection up here at this resistance, which is why it's resistance. I'd say this is an indecision candle, so it doesn't really know where it wants to go yet. We still have 2 trading days, but if it pops back down into support, you're looking at roughly about $7 to $8. resistance 1130 to about 1230. So if you manage to get it into that zone, you'd look at roughly about 52 to about 67% in profit. All right, so now we're going to BCHG. This is one that we do actually hold. So let's actually get rid of the Fibonacci's. I'm not sure why those are still up there. So BCHG is currently in the current resistance zone. I would actually say that this is now support because we had a confirmation above it. So if we get a pullback, the pullback would be somewhere between 7 to 760. Current resistance is $10 to roughly about 13, just shy of 13 bucks. So if this thing does move up, I would say it might potentially get stopped. Like right around here, you can see there's a candle high and a candle low here. That's about $18. So let's go ahead and mark that zone off right now. So we'll put a little itty bitty baby resistance zone in there just so we can see it. So if you chose to buy it now, which it is pretty overextended from the EMAs, and it went up to this resistance zone, you'd be looking at about 60 to 78%. However, if you wanted to be more patient and wait for a pullback that may or may not come to the prior support zone or current support zone, I guess, you'd be looking at 42 to about 73% and as much as 147 to 175% move. ETCG, this one has not really moved much. Let me actually get rid of these fibs. So yeah, this one hasn't really moved much because again, Ethereum is not in blast off mode. It's not at all-time highs like Bitcoin. It hasn't gone to $10,000 per ETH yet. Okay, when we see something like that, then this fund is probably going to move substantially because the underlying will also be moving substantially because Ethereum Classic is an oscillator to Ethereum. So anyways, with that being said, we are sitting at the current resistance currently. You guys can see it's already finding some struggle in here. It's trying to get out of there, but bears are kind of holding it back and or profit takers, which makes sense. So current support still sits between 1320 to 1580 and resistance is between 1780 to 2022. If you waited for a pullback, let's say to the bottom of the support, let's say to the top of the support, which seems likely. So you'd be looking at roughly around 10% to 27%. If you wanted to get in a little bit deeper on it, you'd be looking at roughly about 30 to about 49%. So GXLM, we'll go ahead and cover this one now. So this one is testing resistance. You can see these wicks up here. So this is once again an indecision candle. There's kind of a fight going on between the bulls and the bears here. There's no clear winner yet, so we'll have to wait and see how this turns out the next couple of days. I would say this one, I would not be buying this one right now because it could just go straight back down into the EMAs or into support if this does turn out to be a bearish candle right here. But to each their own. So if you wanted to wait to get back to the EMAs roughly around 30 to about 34 bucks, you could. That's entirely up to you. If you did and it moved up, it'd be about 74 to 91%. For it to get higher above and beyond that, let's just say you wanted to get in now and it did move up, you'd be looking at roughly about 42 to 83%. Perhaps a DCA strategy would be best in this situation, not financial advice, but if you were to DCA up here and then it drops, you could just add more as it goes down. If it does not drop, then it just goes up and you can buy into something else that's cheap. That's generally kind of how we strategize around our investments. That's one of the ways anyways, but it's entirely up to you. So ETH, we have reiterated that this looks very similar to Bitcoin. There could be a cup and handle pattern playing out here. We don't know yet. But the current support is between $25.50 and $29. Resistance between $40.60 and $47.50. So if you wanted to go ahead and get in now, that's up to you, of course. You'd be looking at 25 to 46% move up. If it pulls back, it could pull back roughly about 33% just to get back to the EMAs. We do not have the 51 EMA up right now because, again, we were looking at the Pi cycle top indicator. But if you wanted to wait to get into support, you'd be looking at about 48 to 73%. So Zcash, this one has actually kind of been moving up a little bit. Just so y'all know, we do actually own some Zcash now, the underlying, not the Grayscale Trust, although we might buy some of this too. It does look like it kind of wants to pop out of this resistance, so I would say buying anywhere in this current resistance zone might be a good starting point, because if it pops out of here, it's going to come back and test it as support, and then it's going to move higher. That's generally how this works. So you'd be looking at roughly about an 80 to an 121% move. So current support zones between $4.50 to $5. This week will determine whether we get back to that or not. So $7.30 to $8 at current resistance, and then the high resistance between 14 to 17.20. GSOL has had a substantial pullback. You guys can see the pi cycle top indicator popped up there for GSOL, but it went higher. This is not designed for anything other than Bitcoin, so it's not going to be accurate on this chart. But you guys can see we've already had a bounce, so it looks like some people are trying to get into GSOL at these prices, even as expensive as they are. I would still argue I would not be buying this. Me personally, I wouldn't even touch it until it got to roughly around $200 a share, but that's up to you. If you get in now and you want to swing it all the way to the top, you'd be looking at roughly about 78%. And if you got in around $200, it's a much bigger move, 200%. But again, if you're not really patient, you say, well, you know what, screw that. I don't give a crap if it's at $320. I want to buy it right now because I think it's going to go to the moon. It's going up. I think it's going to go up. Solana's going to go up. Great, you can do that. And then if you have any extra money, hypothetically, you could just put it towards something else that's pretty cheap that you think is going to go up. That's how we do it. Not financial advice, but there is that. Or you could just sit on cash and wait on the sidelines for it to drop again and then just buy more like a position trader would. So Mana, this one is in price discovery, another major indecision candle. We got a couple of days left during the week to figure out what's going on with this. But support is between 17.60 to 20, and the high is at $70. Me personally, I would not be buying this right now with it being this overextended, especially with this candle. So if you hypothetically got in around $20, you'd be looking just to get back to the highs, almost 280%. GBAT, this thing has had a massive swing. You guys can actually see from the fib retracement at the one level, so the swing high to the swing low, and then a massive move up. You can see it hit that profit target of the top Fibonacci retracement there, so pretty accurate tool. I suspect GBAT's probably going to have a pullback. If it pulls back from this area, it could be as deep as 70%, maybe even more, maybe even 80%. I would not buy it until it gets back at least to this swing high here at $9. Let's just assume you got in at that level and you held it to the high. You'd be looking at about a 240% gain. So G-Link, it's hard to say what this one is going to do. It's very indecisive, but again, it is bearish looking. So I would not buy until it got back to the EMAs. So we'll say $74 would be the entry here. You'd be looking at roughly about a 200% gain. Me personally, if I was going to trade this, if it did not get back to the EMAs, like let's say a couple weeks went by and it didn't get back to the EMAs, if I was going to trade this and it just didn't do what I wanted it to do, I would just move on to something else. That's just me, but to each their own. PhilG, this thing is just really, really overextended. It's starting to look a lot like GSOL. Keep in mind, if this does drop, it's going to be a massive drop. We did see that on GSOL, so I would at least be waiting to get back into the EMAs. If you got in at the EMAs, it's a price entry of 115. The target move would be about 240%. And GLIV, very similar, so indecision going on here. I would wait to get into the EMAs because you guys can already see from this wick high, it really went up there and dropped a massive 45%. Keep in mind, crypto is extremely volatile. Okay, these moves can happen literally like that on a dime. Okay, so just to get from there back to the EMAs would be about another nearly 50% drop. So if you got in at the EMAs, let's assume you got in at the candle highs here at roughly about $25. You'd be looking at a massive, nearly 221% gain. So anyways, hope y'all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see y'all later. Peace.